Hey, welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. Today, we're diving into one of the most pressing and thought provoking conversations of our time: the intersection of humanity, artificial intelligence, and technology. How do we stay truly human in a world that is driven by AI? Is technology helping us evolve, or are we losing something essential in the process? And what does it really mean to transcend in this digital area? To explore these big questions, I am sitting down with Faisal Hoque today. He's an award-winning entrepreneur, thought leader, and author of the book Transcend. He's here to break down how we can embrace artificial intelligence and innovation while staying grounded and staying human. Get ready for a deep and powerful conversation that will challenge the way you think about leadership, technology, and the future. Again, welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. Let's get started. Hi, Faisal. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. It's an honor to have you on our show today.
Thanks for having me. Excited about our conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really looking to forward to the conversation today because for those of you that are listening to the podcast, you know that Rise Up For You, we work with leaders and organizations around the world to enhance performance through soft skills. So emotional intelligence, leadership, all the human skills that we often overlook. There's been a lot of conversation around artificial intelligence, how that will impact the workplace, how that will impact humans. And so I'm excited today to talk with you, Faisal, because I know that you have your new book launching and you've done a lot of work around artificial intelligence and how that kind of connects to humans and leadership and what that looks like. So just for our audience sake, Faisal, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Look, I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've built several companies over the years. I've done quite a bit of work with our US government. I've worked with Fortune 2000, and I've written several books. This would be my 11th book, which is called Transcend, which comes out in a couple of months.
Okay, fantastic. So tell us a little bit how you got to where you are. So take me back to Faisal when he was in high school. Who were you?
Uh, I mean, when I was in high school, I was actually in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Okay.
That's in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And from there, I came to US when I was, 18, 19 years old as a student. And post school, started my career with a company called Pitney Bowes here in
Yep.
Connecticut. Then went to Dun& and Bradstreet. I started my first company that got merged with G Capital, started the next company, and it just went from there. So it's been quite the journey from student to starving student to, to building companies to starting to write and running companies at the same time. So it's been a fun ride.
So tell me how you got into the writing aspect of it, because a lot of your work is geared around, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heisel, geared around artificial intelligence technology, but how it coincides with the human interaction and leadership. Like, how did that pivot happen for you that created, the passion or the motivation to start writing about it?
Sure. I wrote my very first book, late 90s, arguing that, the browser was coming out, the internet was kind of starting. And my argument was that if we don't get the business model right, we're not going to be very successful with technology. And right after that, we had the internet bubble.
Yeah.
And then I started to, do a lot of research around leadership and human connection and business model and technology usage, and kind of started to crank out one book after another. And then 15 years ago, I took this sabbatical in Japan and kind of connected my Eastern roots with Zen philosophy. And that kind of was like a pivotal moment for me to um, think about our soft skills in terms of how we think about ourselves, how we connect with ourselves, and how we connect with the world has a tremendous impact in terms of what we create and what we consider value, and how does that actually allows us to create something sustainable. So I published a book called Everything Connects, and it got deeper into mindfulness and resiliency and knowing yourself and cultivating your creative side with softer skill. but use utilization of technology. And obviously, over the last 2 3 years, technology has gotten to the whole next level, especially with
Yeah.
the emergence of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and so this is why I'm excited to talk with you, because there's a lot of people that are scared right now when it comes to technology and artificial intelligence. And I think it's a great asset for us, but I'm on your page, which is that the emotional and social intelligence, the social skills have to continue to increase in order for us to optimize artificial intelligence. Now, the challenge that I'm seeing, Faisal, and I want to hear your opinion on this, is that for some reason we are not cultivating those human skills. They're not taught in the education
Sure.
system. They're not taught in K through 12. We think that they're common sense. We think it's extracurricular, but in all actuality, it's a skill just like any other, degree or skill that you get that we have to build. And I'm continuously seeing the gap, not just in kids, but also in adults now, that they're getting faster with technology and AI and all of these resources that are being built, but their ability to connect, to find personal value, right, to build self confidence, to build relationships is getting less and less and less and less. And so I'm curious, are you seeing the same thing? Like, what are your thoughts generally on what I just said?
Look, I mean, technology, as it pushes its boundary, it's obviously making us, to a certain extent, lazy, and a
Yeah.
convenience factor taking over even our thought process. So simple example of daily life. I mean, you want to you want to watch a show. You turn on your Netflix. It's already suggesting what you should be watching based on your pattern of watching, and you don't even look for anything else. You just immediately go and see the show
Yeah.
that's being suggested to you. You
Yeah.
go shopping, same thing happens, right? I mean, you bought a particular type of shoes, so it just constantly pushes you those shoes. Take one step farther, you like particular viewpoint, social, political, whatever it is, and the algorithm just feeds you those things. So as those things happen, we're surrendering more and more our freedom to technology, and technology is taking over our thinking pattern. Take one step farther. Let's say you use Chat GPT or Claude or something to craft your email. Pretty soon, what's happening? You're not crafting your email anymore. You're letting it, or the device or the tool, craft your entire message, and you're going farther and farther away from what you stand for and your feelings and your viewpoint to this collective source of technology. So this is the pivotal point for humanity, and that's why I call the unlocking humanity, not
Yeah.
unlocking technology,
Yeah.
in the age of AI. The more consciously or unconsciously we surrender our freedom, it's really about freedom of our
Yeah.
thinking process, the more and more we're going to be disadvantaged, because we're not going to have any type of critical thinking capability to decide what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's not true, what we should be really focusing on, and what we should not be focusing. That's harmful to us, right? So it is a really a critical point.
Yeah, I mean, I was when you were talking, what I was thinking about is like the crippling of the mind, because the
Yes,
mind is no the mind will no longer be exercised, right, in your ability to critical think, to make decisions, to think off the top of your feet, even to retain information, right? We're seeing that even the retention of the humans has diminished drastically over the years, because you no longer read a book and then have to remember. You just go to Google, you type in your phone and it pops up. So what do you like, where are you seeing the shift? I mean, the answer is not to get rid of AI, obviously. So
right.
what do you think are some of the key elements to ensuring that we can be successful, continue to build our humanity in a state of artificial intelligence that I was just listening to a podcast today, and this current moment, this is the weakest AI will be, right? Meaning that like
Yes,
every day that
right.
we move
Of course.
forward, it will continue to
Yes.
increase and expand.
Right. And look, I mean, AI at a very fundamental level, without getting very technical, I mean, it is, garbage in, garbage out, right? Still, because you're feeding its information, and it's generating or cultivating its own information based on things that are being provided. So AI is really a reflection of our collective human society. And
Yeah.
look, a 10,000 people's brain is obviously much more stronger than, let's say, one person's brain. So if you can just use that as an analogy, AI will always be more powerful in terms of its ability to compute and
Sure.
translate and to give you information. So the question is, how do we survive that level of overwhelming intelligence? We can compete at an intelligence level with AI. That's already given up. What we'll have to do, however, is we'll have to decide and be very devoted to protect what humanity really means. And at a fundamental level, it gets very philosophical in the sense that human being is about freedom. And what does that mean? It's freedom to think, it's freedom to choose, it's freedom to love, it's freedom to uphold what we think is most important factor for collective society, right? That's what humanity is. So we have to collectively decide that if we want to protect those, then we have to be devoted to that, and we have to detach from convenience factor and outsourcing our thinking process to a whole lot of different type of intelligence that are emerging. And as a result, we become almost numb, as you said a few minutes ago, or we become irrelevant because we're no longer doing any kind of thinking. We're just
Yeah.
surrendering, right? So,
Yeah.
but on the other side, there's tremendous amount of productivity gain. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity to cure a lot of diseases. There's tremendous amount of opportunity to be super creative. Like, for example, one thing I have done, I have loaded up my 10 plus manuscript in my own large scale, the LLM model, so that I can extract information and data and research that I've done over the course of time that I don't necessarily remember, but it's my own work. So that made me very productive to pull things out, right? You
Yeah,
can use that
absolutely.
same example in the context of an organization. So it depends
Yeah.
where do you want to go and how do you want to use it.
Yeah, and so to everyone that's listening, I would love for you to shine a little bit of light on. As you know, there's a lot of people that are scared, right? They're like, "Well, artificial intelligence is going to replace me." What would you say people need to do to not be replaced?
Look, I mean, in every, if you look at the human history, every stage of major technological advancement, uh, jobs got displaced and job got created, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
challenge with now with artificial intelligence and technology in general is the exponential growth of this technology is so fast we haven't completely put our arms around it. But if you think from a fear factor point of view, I mean, you can imagine very easily that, look, fast foods that are repeated jobs will be replaced by robots. Taxis will be replaced by self-driving
Self-driving
cars, right?
cars. Yeah, yeah.
Researcher will be replaced by a whole lot of repeated researcher, whereby you can maybe one researcher can do 10 researchers work because you have access to those information. So so both physical and intellectual driven work will be somewhat replaced by AI, various form of AI. The people who are going to be succeeding are the people who will know how to use this thing to be making themselves far more productive. So, for
Yes.
example, if you say, "Look, I do knowledge. I'm a knowledge worker, and I do intellect-driven work. I have to learn how to use this technology to be better at anybody else, and that's how it's going to get more and more competitive. And as a result of this, there will be jobs that will be created that we can't necessarily think about, right now that will emerge in the next 3 to 5 years. But you can easily see within next 3 to 5 years, 70% of the jobs are no longer the same.
Yeah.
That's inevitable.
Yeah, well, we see that now, and I think you're absolutely right. And this is why this is kind of like my push again when it comes to education. This is why it's so important that we start teaching the human skills on the educational level so that when they have access to AI, they know how to use it, and they don't overcompensate by strictly using technology and not being able to kind of exercise the mind. I'm curious, Faisal, because obviously you're more ingrained in the tech space and the AI space. Is there anything coming out or that's on the verge of coming out that you just think is going to blow everyone's mind when it comes to AI? Like some kind of technology or platform or robot or whatever that you know of that is going to be a game changer?
Well, look, it's already happening because AI is not just one type of technology, right? I mean, it's been actually history of one of the things we did in Transcend, which is the upcoming book, is that we looked at the history of AI, and you can go back as like 11th century, where people imagine having these machines that will be automated and doing things. Is the age of Da Vinci, and
Yeah.
there are some Middle Eastern philosophers and Jewish philosophers that predicted and came up with these mechanical devices that are somewhat does automation. So the history of AI starts with mechanical automation, and then obviously it went through a series of computing history, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now. So, and if you just look at last 30 years of history, we kind of had automation, then we had analytics, then we kind of moved into this generative AI model, and then we're now getting into agentic AI, whereby agentic AI is really a counterpart of a human being, where you are assigning workload that they do for you with their own cognitive ability to think and pattern recognition, right? So that's
And
the
we're
next
there.
level.
We're there.
We're
Yeah.
there, right? So,
Yeah, we're
so I mean,
there.
we're doing generative AI, but the agentic AI is already emerging, right? So it's not just one thing. When you look at the collection of these things, and then you look at robotics, which is like the mechanical aspect of AI, which can do physical, work, because the AI is there's the soft element of it, meaning the brain element of it, and there's a robotics in terms of the physical element of it. When you combine all this stuff, it's already transcendent, if I can use that word. And it's anybody knows, if anybody says that they know where it's going, they're kind of not being totally honest, because none of us really know where it's going to go, know where it's going to go. But all we know is going to be dramatically different future than what we see now, even if you think about like next 3 years to five
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And it's individual responsibility to gear up, protect. Protect meaning your thinking pattern and what you're consuming and what you're where you're giving up your freedom. I mean, from that point of view,
Yeah.
organization in terms of the governance model, and government from legislation and the legal framework that we have to establish to protect the humanity, right?
Yeah,
All
and
of that is going to decide where we go.
yeah, and that's exactly what I was just gonna say is because there's a protection of the mind, right? So that we can continue to have freedom in our thought and expand as human beings. But I also think there's a side of it where, I mean, you just said we don't know where it's going to be in 5 years. I think there's a big concern for humans around how are we controlling AI so that it doesn't
Sure.
destruct humanity.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody has the answer to that, but I do know that there is various, I mean, I just met an entrepreneur a couple of days ago that they're building an entire platform to protect humans from AI. Not sure exactly what that means, but I think that fear is very real. Is that will AI ever get to a point where it can physically and realistically destruct human beings?
It will absolutely do that if we don't take the proper guardrail. So what is that guardrail, right? So think about it from this point of view. This platform. So if you look at ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Claude, or even like DeepSeek, these are platforms.
Yeah.
So there's the platform vendors, and there's also chip manufacturer that are coming, like NVIDIA, the chip manufacturer that actually does the computing of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
models that gives you the answer. And there's the application that we're building, meaning all of us, one form or another, to utilize those things, right? And then there's the government, meaning the actual government, U.S. government, and other type of government across the globe that will have to put legislation in place that protect the boundaries in terms of how far is too much, how do we protect intellectual property, how do we provide, protect individual rights, how do we protect there's this impersonation and deep fake
Yeah.
and that sort of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
How do we protect nation from one nation to another nation? Like you saw a lot of conversation around deep six last week, where people got excited that it's cheaper and all that, but there's a national security element to it too, because you don't want to have Trojan horse stuff coming to your phone and in your computer that sucks up information and puts
100%.
in the hands of rogue nation, right? So
Yeah.
all of this getting extremely complicated, and we obviously don't want to stop the pace of innovation, but we cannot also be not responsible. Responsibility, ethics, governance goes hand in hand in order to protect humanity. Not just do we put technological guardrail, it's beyond technological guardrail. And that's why, I talk quite a bit about, the philosophy and ethics, because it's fundamentally questioning what is it that about what is about humanity that you want to protect. Because is it that you want to physically protect humanity? Is it that you want to protect the essence of humanity? Is it to protect humanity so that we never die, because we have now technological ability to keep us alive forever and ever? So these are very philosophical and societal questions that we have to answer, and where we go from here will be the collective decision of global society.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Do you feel that we're on the right track from a societal and government perspective? I mean, from an individual perspective, we all need to take ownership, right? That's part of the
Sure.
reason why Rise Up for You exists, teaching the human skills, helping people stay more connected, building the soft skills. But do you think that from a societal and governmental perspective, we're on the right track when it comes to creating some of those boundaries? Or do you think AI is moving faster than our ability to kind of put some guardrails around it?
It's absolutely moving faster than putting a guardrail, because if you look at European Union, they're a little farther in terms of their
Yeah.
legislative and governance framework. US, we don't really have yet any kind of a cohesive legislative framework that says you can't do this, you can't access this, or you can't develop this, or you cannot distribute it, right? We don't have any such framework yet, which needs to be developed. And every day things are changing. And anytime you see these foreign not outside of U.S. things gets a little more advanced. Like you saw the deep fake stuff, not
Yeah.
deep fake, the deep seek stuff, and it had a
Yep. Yep.
huge impact on the stock market, right?
Oh,
So
for
it's a
sure.
it's a
My Nvidia
it's
stock
very.
went down.
Absolutely. And you can say that's temporary, and you can say it's
Sure.
reactive and it will correct itself and whatnot. But my point is that I don't think we are where we need to. The advancement is happening faster than our ability to put place legislation and legal framework. We kind of seen that in the era of social media,
Yeah.
because you remember that in social media, when all these social media companies crop up, we also had a lot of harm in terms of people impersonating and people going after each other, bullying, etc., etc. And then it had to correct itself, and it's still not there, right?
Correct. Yeah.
AI is in a whole different pace that we are way too far behind in terms of legislative and legal structure, along with responsible uses of AI, because we're learning, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully it will catch up sooner than later.
Yeah. All very fascinating, all very interesting. I think it's important for us to just continue to educate ourselves on what's happening, stay ahead of the curve. Faisal, talk to us a little bit about your book. I know it's coming out here in the first quarter. I'd love for you to share with our
Sure.
audience about it.
So look, first and foremost, the book is called Transcend, is Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. All proceed goes to cancer research, because I have a personal tie to cancer. And the book, the way we crafted it is we looked at there's business, there's technology, there's humanity, and there's philosophy. They're all kind of interconnected because all the things that we just talked
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And we prescribed a framework how to kind of innovate with AI, but also how to put guardrail. We call the exploration open, and we call the the governance model CARE, and it's an acronym. It stands for steps and guides. So open and CARE is the framework that we prescribe to innovate responsibility, to uphold and get most out of humanity while we protect the humanity. So that's essentially the essence of the book. I think I lost you. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your video is frozen.
1 second. I just paused for a second.
Do you want me to dial back in?
Oh, I don't. It looks like it's just. I don't know if
No, you're breaking in and out. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Check, check.
I can hear you now. Yes,
okay.
I can.
Well,
I
we
can
were
hear.
talking about AI and it kicked us off. Let's continue. I'll go ahead. Okay. It looks like we are. Yeah, it looks like we're back to recording. Okay, so the bots heard us and they were like, Faisal, thanks again for joining us. I would love to jump into the power section of the interview, some rapid fire questions. So we always like to ask our guests, if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget here at Rise Up For You. What would your golden nugget be?
I would say that let's focus what's important to human beings, and everything else will kind of fall in place if you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And here at Rise Up For You, we're really big on values. So we'd love to know what's one value that you have, Faisal, that's a non-negotiable for you.
Do no harm. That's my
Do no harm.
do good, but do no harm.
I love that. And a final question for you, but before I ask, where can our audience get to know you? Where can they find you? I know you're active on LinkedIn.
Sure. I mean, you can find on my website, which is it's faisalhoque.com. As you said, you can find me on LinkedIn. Books are all on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and wherever books are sold.
Fantastic. Great. And we'll put all that in the show notes for everyone. Faisal, final question for you. As you know, we are the company Rise Up For You. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase?
Look, I wrote a book called Lift, and my message in Lift was that you can't lift others if you don't first lift yourself. So I can completely relate to your company's name and your in your mantra and the value, because to rise up you have to first rise yourself, and then you can rise others.
Absolutely. I love that. Faisal, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. It was an honor to have you. I'm sure I'll bring you back on in the next year or two when AI continues to grow. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. Again, this is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. Every single week, we're bringing you brand new episodes from experts, executives, and leaders from around the world. Our sole focus is to help you be your absolute best by teaching you the soft skills and helping you push your potential. Thanks for joining us. Faisal, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Nada Lena Nasserdeen, the CEO and the founder of Rise Up For You and the podcast host of the Rise Up For You podcast. I want to remind you all that our show is completely ad-free and commercial-free. That's right. We want to make sure that you get full access to this podcast interview without any interruptions. So I have just a really small ask for you. We would be absolutely honored if you can share this podcast, send it to your family, your friends, your coworkers. Help us get the message out for this podcast, because we are bringing you amazing interviews every single week with executives, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders that are here to help you become your absolute best. Share this podcast with anyone that you think would love to listen to it. Don't forget to subscribe and like so that you can get access every single week to the episodes that we're bringing straight to you. We appreciate you, and without you, this podcast would not exist.